Any other questions that you might have? Like,
let me see.
Seller's residency, GST certificates.
I don't actually know what seller's particulars and residency is. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so a seller's particular and residency becomes relevant because in Canada they have withholding tax for non-residents. So what the government wants to make sure is that as sellers, they pay up all the taxes that are owing before they sell potentially the only property that they have. And so you inform the purchaser of their residency status so that the purchaser understands and is able to be comforted to know that you've dealt with the residency obligation because you're a non-resident. Otherwise, if the seller ends up fleeing the country without paying their appropriate taxes, the Canadian government can actually come after the buyer. And so the buyer is very wary of situations where the seller is a non-resident, so that they want to make sure the non-resident has met their obligations in paying the taxes that are due and owing, so it doesn't come back to haunt the buyer.
I think another term that might be important to point out is the time provision. And typically all real estate transaction contracts will have something to the effect of this, which just essentially states that time is of the essence. And this is significant just because there are certain deadlines and dates that are stipulated in the contract. And what this clause does essentially is saying that, you know, if those conditions aren't met by that stipulated time or the deadline, that would constitute a breach of the contract and give rise for a buyer or seller to void the contract, and in the case of a seller, for them to retain the deposit that's paid, and you know, discharge the contract, and with being able to keep the deposit.